Okay, let's say you needed to make a data table and a graph using Google Spreadsheets. How do you go about doing that? Well, first you got to figure out what is it that needs to go in your data table. So let's say you want to do an experiment where you're trying to figure out how the length of a pipe would affect the frequency of the sound that would be created when you struck that pipe. So your independent variable in that case would be the length of your pipe, and your dependent variable would be the frequency of the sound. So let's say you measured the frequency of the sound with an app from your phone, and you measured the length of your pipe with just a ruler, a metric ruler. Your independent variable needs to go in your first column. Your dependent variable needs to go in the next columns with all of the trials for every measurement that you took, along with an average. You also want to make sure that your headings include the units. You don't want to type the units into all of the cells, just on the top. Otherwise, it won't graph properly. Next, I want to wrap the text. So I'm choosing this wrap function after highlighting all of the cells. Then I'm just resizing so that it fits the way I like it, and I'm merging the cells to make it easier to read. Then since my independent variable was my pipe length, I'm going to put in all of the different pipe lengths that I chose to use. Then I just want to put borders on my cells, so I'm highlighting all of it. I'm selecting to put borders on. Now I'm ready to collect data. I'm just going to put in imaginary data. Now I'm ready to highlight all of the cells, and I would go to my insert button and I would select chart, and I can make my graph. Now the graph that Google just created for me is not quite what I want. So I can scroll down under the chart editor to scatter plot, and I can remove some of the things that I don't want. Like I don't want each of the trials to show up. So I can click on them and remove. And click and remove until I just have the average as my series. Next I can go to Customize and choose Series, scroll down, and I can add a trend line. I can also add the equation to that trend line by scrolling down even further to where underneath the label I can say use equation. Then if I want the R squared value or the correlation coefficient, I can select that. Now this all looks good except for the titles are not so great. So I'm going to click under Chart and Axis Titles and choose the chart title. I'm going to switch this to say something more appropriate for my graph, like the effect of pipe length on frequency. Now my vertical axis is also not labeled, so I'm going to need to change that. So also under Chart and Axis Titles, I can choose Vertical Axis Title, and I can say that that should be frequency measured in hertz. All right, then just taking a look at my graph, making sure both axes are labeled, both have units, I have a title on the graph. Then I can move it over to my presentation. So to do that, I'm going to highlight first the data table and copy, and then I can paste that into my presentation. Then I can come back here and I can select the graph, and those three little dots underneath those, they'll say copy chart. So I copy the chart, and then I can paste it also into my presentation. There you go. Hope that helped.